Hi, writers and book lovers. Miranda Darrow, freelance fiction editor here. Every week, I post new videos on this YouTube channel about writing, editing, and the writing life. And every month, I post at least one video that is writing advice talking about a useful concept or resource. This week, we're tackling the 12 stages of physical intimacy, which are useful to authors writing romance or any genre novel with a romantic subplot or love story, especially if you don't want to come off as your characters of insta-love, where they fall for each other right away, and the I hate you, and now all of a sudden we're in love coming out of the blue. This is a way to build a foundation to show that your characters are attracted to each other, sometimes even before the characters realize it. Just like other story elements, romance arcs need proper foreshadowing and incremental steps. And the 12 stages of physical intimacy will help your readers get there and look forward to your characters pairing with anticipation, not dread or cringe. I read books all the time that don't pace or set up their romances sufficiently. A lot of the current romantasy books aren't taking this step quite thoroughly enough, so this is a concept that is definitely useful. I'm not calling out anyone, but other reviewers are, claiming the story suffers from insta-love or sex out of nowhere. For my author clients, as an editor, I point this out all the time and show authors how to build these 12 stages into their novel before the characters get to banging, so readers are craving it and cheering for it. Before we dive in, here's some caveats. First, this concept works regardless of heat level, but not all stages will show up if you have a clean or sweet romance. So you will just stop at whatever point as far as you want to go as a writer. You do not need to include them all. You can change or alter them a bit if this is more natural for your characters. And I've got some examples for that when I do give my examples. You don't need to have all of them, and you don't need to use them all in the exact order. But it usually makes logical sense to keep pretty close to this order because it's a progression of showing people getting to know each other, a growing comfort level with physical proximity, and a comfort with contact. You can add your own custom stages that make sense for your characters and their settings. And I'll have examples of all of these when I run through the example later when we go through Love Lettering by Kate Clayborn. And the final caveat, as with most writing concepts, I didn't invent this. I read multiple articles about it, including Jenny Hansen's blog post in the Writers of the Storm blog from 2012, which cites to Terry O'Dell's blog post in 2010, and articles that cite to Linda Howard, who gave presentations on this topic to many romance writing audiences many years ago. And then most of these cite to researcher Desmond Morris, who wrote a book called Intimate Behavior, a zoologist's classic study of human intimacy. Right. So who knew that that was going to show up as writing advice for writing romance? So there's a scientific basis for these concepts. And when you become aware of it, you will start seeing these stages, these points in rom-com movies, in romance novels, and in romantic subplots in any type of movie or story when someone takes the time to do it well. It really is one of the major differences between nominees for the Bad Sex Awards and a satisfying climax to your book. First, let's run through the 12 stages of physical intimacy. Then I'll walk you through where and how they appear in Love Lettering by Kate Clayborn. The point of these stages is to note when they first happen and then show your POV character having a reaction to this new point of contact. Oh, he's hot, the guy with the Elvis pork chop sideburns and plumber smile in his low-rise jeans. Whatever your main character's love interest looks like from the POV of your main character. If you have two POVs, swap them up and feel free to show double for some of the first, but for some of the stages. But this also works with single POV, which is how love lettering is written. Stage 1 is eye to body. This is the first time a POV character sees their love interest. If they are strangers before the story starts, this is absolutely a key moment. It's part of the meet cute, and it should be lust at first sight. Not love. We're not at love yet. Slow down, cowboy. But that first glance should hold some hint of attraction. Even if they are meeting this person and they know that they are mortal enemies, they're competing for the same promotion, or this is the evil loan officer who's repossessing Granny's pickup. This is where the POV character gives a physical description of their future lover. And this is useful because it prevents the character from having to look at herself in the mirror and describe her own flowing locks and admiring her eye color, both of which are rookie mistakes. Don't have your character look at the mirror and describe themselves. Let the other character describe them. We want to be in the main character's head when they see their love interest. And even if this is a glance between two friends or business associates, this is the first step in building that emotional intimacy between them. If the characters already know each other, it isn't as much as a first impression as a description of how they view the character now. And if it's friends to lovers, there could be a point where we revisit how they view this other character and see their admirable form in a new light, even if they aren't even remotely viewing them as a future mate yet. Stage 2, eye to eye. Oh, we have active interaction between the others. They're looking at each other and not just being a creeper, admiring them from afar. If you have dual POV, shift back and forth often enough that both POV characters get to give a decent description of how they view the other. Select your POV as the character with the most to lose in the scene or situation. Let your POV character be a little vulnerable when they first meet eyes with their future love. Stage 3 is voice to voice. Sooner or later, our folks are going to stop ogling each other and actually talk to one another. And someone will have a reaction to their future mate's voice like an angel. Or it could sound like a foghorn, but eventually it'll be the sexiest dang foghorn in the whole harbor. Take note of who speaks first and how the other responds. This exchange should provoke a reaction in your POV character and in your readers. Stage 4, hand to hand. Houston, we have physical contact. Sometimes this can take a long time. In a slow burn romance, in a historical with chaste morals, religious ones, sometimes characters are physically separated but communicating via phone or computer. I attempted to map out the 12 stages of physical intimacy in Pride and Prejudice, and I realized these people are so repressed. They don't even touch each other while they're dancing. I give up. It reminded me of when I was in junior high dances and the teachers had rulers and would smack anyone who was dancing closer than 6 inches to someone of the opposite sex. Oh, the 80s. What a trip. This is the first touch and it crosses boundary because once they start touching, it's a slippery slope into grope. All right, stage 5 is arm to shoulder. A show of hands. Who here first experienced this move while on a date in a movie theater? The old yawn, stretch, and the arm is across the back of the seat. We're getting up close and personal. And when we're in this close proximity and this touch, we can smell the other person and we can comment on their sandalwood scent. Or is it jasmine? Or is it their sexy shampoo? Does anyone else remember Body on Tap, a shampoo that contained beer? Or was that really only popular in Wisconsin in the 70s when I remember their ads? Anyway, the school dance chaperones with their rulers would not approve of the proximity involved in this stage. But we're moving on. Stage 6 is arm to the waist or back. Ooh, I can remember early days of dating my husband. Just as a point of reference, I met my husband in January of 2005, and we were married in November of 2005. So this is not exactly a slow burn romance, but I was a single mom with shared custody of my oldest, and I didn't introduce her to anyone when I was out dating. I'd been seeing my current husband for about a month when I got in a car accident with my daughter in the car. My car was undrivable, so I called my guy, and he showed up with his truck, and he helped us get from my vehicle to his, and he gave me and my daughter a ride home. It was still winter, icy roads in Minnesota, and my future husband put an arm around both of us while ushering us across the icy road through the traffic and into the parking lot where he parked. I was worried about explaining who this was to my daughter, why he was helping us, but then he was so focused on getting us to safety, installing my car seat in his truck. I'll never forget that moment when I first pictured him as my potential future husband, someone protective and good in a crisis. Often in romance novels, as in real life, a hand on the back or the waist is a sign of protection, but it could also be possession, a message to everyone else. Hey, you're on notice. They're with me. In modern romance novels, consent is important. So make sure that this and all contact from this point are good touches, wanted and appreciated by the recipient, and that the toucher is watching for this and responding appropriately. And if they aren't, address that issue. All right, stage 7, mouth to mouth. Now we're getting somewhere. Not every romance will have a kiss, as some sweet or religious texts will stop before this point. But if you do, here's where we start seeing fireworks. At this point, the characters have been admiring each other, hot for each other, but someone has to lean in first. If you're writing a Hallmark movie type romance, you could have a near kiss in an elevator that suddenly opens and the boss steps in before you get to that kiss. Once a proper basis has been established, kissing creates tension that will keep your readers reading. Stage 8, hand to head. I've seen this one swapped with stage 7, kiss, plenty of times, and frequently it can show up in rapid succession. But I've also seen hand to head show up earlier in a playful tousling of the hair, brushing that lost eyelash off your cheek type move. I've also seen this as part of pulling the other person close to whisper a secret. Hands to the face or head could also be more intimate, the fingertip tracing the line of her jaw, or maybe a friendly hair tuck. It could be an awkward attempt to impress a new love by finding a coin magically in their ear. That could be adorable. Stage 9, hand to body. We're well on our way to foreplay, folks. I think this label is a little confusing as we already have hands touching hands, shoulders, backs, and heads. So I always read this as one hand is touching a place on the body that is usually covered with clothing, but in this instance, they're touching bare skin. Clothing is being removed, or someone drops in on someone else in a state of undress. Do you think they don't know about shrinkage? This could also be part of the hurt comfort trope when someone is coming to the physical aid of their future lover. But usually this first point of context is the characters getting close and sexy. In warm heat level books, this is frequently the place where contact can end badly, as it can occur right before the couple breaks up for their dark moment. The readers have cheered for them to get together, and they are so close. But oh no, the misbeliefs are attacking, or the external plot has taken over, and our lovers might be torn asunder. And having the readers so close to satisfaction, they are left wanting. Have mercy. Stage 10, mouth to breast. The scientific basis for this concept cites to the excretion of the bonding hormone, oxytocin, the love hormone. Women frequently excrete oxytocin when they have skin-to-skin contact with their nipples or lips or tongue. Let those pointy, perky breasts bounce around, especially if your POV character here is a woman or if your hero is a boob guy, not to be confused with the guy who is a boob. That's something else. Stage 11, hand to genitals. Things are getting quite frisky with our lovers now, and usually this moves quickly from stage 11 to stage 12. A full home run. But it's also great fun to torment your lovers and your readers here by introducing an external conflict that causes some coitus interruptus. Kick that door open and arrest someone, or drop a clue that they can't ignore. The Blue Ball Brigade will keep turning pages, hoping that satisfaction is coming soon. Oh, please God, soon. And that brings us to stage 12, genitals to genitals. He's going all the way. You're at the sex act, and your characters and readers are hoping for satisfaction. If you had a bit of a slow burn, this could be the one sex scene of the book, and you could leave your lovers in peace after this, having this scene after the external plot climax and after the character growth arc or arcs are completed. However, if you aren't at the end of the book, we still need some conflict, some tension driving this scene, and that's fine. Show some conflict in the POV character's perspective, a secret, a fear, a misbelief, or ramp up the external state. So there's so much conflict that they aren't at peace, even though they're thoroughly enjoying their time with their partner. If you have a high heat level book with multiple sex scenes, there's frequently a sex scene right before the breakup, the dark night of the soul. If you're extra spicy, writing high heat contemporary romance, most readers will be expecting sex on the page by page 60. Check your books, as this is a rule of thumb for a high heat level. Okay, that's my walkthrough of the 12 stages. So let's map them out in a sex on the page contemporary romance novel that I picked, which is Love Lettering by Clayborn. I picked this because I like it. And also it's a bit of a slow burn. We don't get to stage 12 until page 178 out of 303. So more than halfway through the book. So it's not lots and lots of sex book. It's not a Mariana Zapata level of slow burn where there's 400 plus pages before we get to stage 12. But this one's pretty well spaced out. So you can tell I've got my flags, it's spaced out. And it had some bonus stages because the characters were a bit quirky and shy and reserved. So there's a 100-page gap between one stage and another stage. So the author inserted a couple other ones that were incremental and gave them a chance to really develop those feelings. Okay, here's my mapping of the 12 stages of physical intimacy in Kate Clayborn's Love Lettering. Stage 1 is eye to body. This occurs on page 6. And note, this is the second time these characters have met. They'd first met a year ago when Reed, the hero, was engaged to somebody else, and Meg, the heroine, was making their wedding stationery. She thinks in fonts and graphics, and he's a numbers person who sees patterns in numbers. They are nerds, and they take some time and some prodding to get handsy. There's a lengthy passage where she compares what he looked like in their first meeting, very buttoned up and formal and remote, and how he looks now, a bit more rumpled. Here's the quote. But now he looks different. Same head, okay, a square, clean-shaven jaw, high cheekbones that seem to carve swooping shadowed lines down to his chin, a full-lipped mouth with corners turning slightly down, a nose bold enough to match the rest of his strong features. Dark jeans, the edges of the front pockets where he has his hand tucked, slightly frayed, and I don't think this is the kind of fraying that you pay for. Gray sneakers, a bit battered looking. Maybe I think his life is pretty different now, too. Stage 2, eye to eye, which occurs on page 10. So no, this actually occurs after stage 3. This one shows up after voice to voice. They don't make eye contact until 4 pages after they are alone in a room together talking. This was one of my first clues that Reed is on the spectrum. Hey, Reed, I think eye contact is the worst too. And he's just made a huge faux pas by referring to her as a shop girl, an insult to a business entrepreneur like Meg. I blink across the counter at him, trying to wait out the annoyance. But then, before I can plaster over the crack, I press up on my tiptoes, exaggeratedly looking over his shoulder. One of 2 excellent shoulders, not that I should care, to the street beyond, to the green awning of the fancy shave shop flapping gently in the breeze. Did you come here in a time machine? I ask sweetly. I lower back down on my heels, meet his eyes so I can catch the expression I'll see there. Blink, flat. No anger or amusement, the most sans serif person. A time machine, he repeats? Yes, a time machine, because no one has said shop girl since parchment wares. That's all I can think, annoyingly. So I finish with an exceedingly disappointing, a long time ago. Note that even though she's mad at him for the insult and she thinks he's married, but actually they called off the wedding, she doesn't find that out until later, she can't help but notice the excellence of his shoulders. It's no sexy forearms with his long sleeves cuffed up, but Meg is a sucker for shoulders. What can we say? Stage 3, voice to voice. This appears on page 6, so pages before actually look eye to eye. This is immediately after the eye to paragraph in page 3 with the long description of Reed in comparison to their prior meeting, where she thinks he has changed in the past year. But then he says, good evening, which I guess means he's still got the same stick up his ass. Who says good evening? Your granddad, that's who. When you call him on his landline. Stage 4, hand to hand or hand to arm. On page 26, he holds out his free hand. On autopilot, I shake it. I feel the warm, dry strength of his palm enveloping mine, a gesture that feels shockingly unbusinesslike. And I'm sure to me alone. Good thing I'll never see him again, because these are highly inappropriate feelings to have for this particular man. When he releases my hand, he gives me one of those devastating nods. All that reaction to just the handshake. Stage 5, arm to shoulder on page 58. Meg gets jostled in a crowd, which prompts stage 5. I bump into Reed's side. From the impact, he steadies me with a hand on my elbow and snaps, watch it, asshole, to the pedestrian. I'm pretty sure the guy doesn't hear him, but the line is enough of a surprise to shake me out of my inhibitions. Whoa, I say, my eyes wide as I look up at Reed. You just called that guy an asshole. This is the first time he's sworn in front of Meg, as he's pretty prim and uptight, but he's protective of her. The touch is to steady her so she doesn't fall down on a city street, not the stretch over the back movie theater move. Reed is a gentleman. Stage 6, arm to waist or back on page 61. Now, I counted this on page 61 as arm to back, but note, he does not actually touch her. She can feel his arm hovering behind her, protecting her. We do not progress to stage 7 for another 100 pages. So savor this hover, readers. These folks are going full turtle. So I'm highlighting some other physical intimacy moments that the author highlighted to keep the acceleration of intimacy during the buildup. But here is the near stage 6. I feel the way he keeps his hand hovering at my back, not touching, but hovering. Ooh, this reminds me of an article about how Keanu Reeves always hovers his hands well behind people when taking pictures of them, not imposing on their space. Keanu is a freaking role model. And Reed is also not presuming to touch Meg, even though he's clearly smitten with her by this point. Gentlemen, we finally get to stage 6. This is an interim one. So I call this 6.1 for her, where there's breath on her face. So on page 123, we're entering the 100 pages of the book between stages. So the author throws us a bone and gives us some other intimacy nuggets to keep us invested. Here we go. He stands then, and the movement puts us close to each other, unexpectedly so. Both of us seem to take the same quick inhale, and his hands rise to cup my elbows, as though to steady me. And I guess it's a good thing, because whoa, both my elbows at the same time. I feel that touch like starburst beneath my skin. between my legs. My eyes rise to his. My head is tipped down. The hair he smoothed back, curling over his brow again. When he breathes out, I feel the fine strands of hair around my face quiver. I feel so many things, so much more than I did this morning. Whoa, Nellie, we have cupped elbows and breath on her face. It's getting hot in here. Then the next one. He protects her in a bar fight on page 156. Here we go. We're finally getting to the real stage 6, where he finally puts his arm around her shoulder, 100 pages after his hovering hand, and they're in a bar fight. She presses her body close to his for protection. And oddly, this is written in a series of flashbacks rather than a live scene, but we do get these snippets. He turned and grabbed me by the wrist. He tucked my body close to his. He put an arm around my shoulders and started to shove his way through the crowd of angry, sloppy patrons. Then he got punched in the face, even though they weren't involved in the fight, which leads them to a trip to the ER, and he touches his face as an act of comfort, not sexy fun times, because these two are just so freaking sweet. This face touch happens before they kiss. Page 168, stage 7, the kiss, mouth to mouth, happens 7 pages after she comforts him from the stitches on his brow that he got in the bar fight. But this is a slow burn, and it gains all of its momentum, and we're churning through the rest of the stages in a rapid pace. In the next 10 pages, we will get through all of the rest of the stages, even though it took 100 pages to get from the last one. Once this snowball gets rolling, it's like the intro to Rocky and Bullwinkle, and watch out, frostbite falls. So here's our stage. I only feel the press of Reed's perfect lips against mine, and as soon as it happens, I know that I could have my eyes closed this way and I'd still know Reed's kiss anywhere, because Reed's kiss is everything I like about Reed. Firm and direct, with a sweetness you have to know to truly recognize. He sets one of his big warm hands to the side of my neck, my palm pressing against the network of his veins, where the blood rushes to the surface for his, but with his thumb, he slightly strokes the line of my jaw. His lips on mine tell me he wants more than a chaste closed-mouth kiss, but he waits until my tongue slips over his closed-mouth kiss. He waits until my tongue slips over his bottom lip to give me his own. And once he does, he makes that soft groan that I've heard him make before. But this, the perfect vision of it, the one I'll hear from my dreams for days and days. When readers complain that showing consent isn't sexy, they haven't read it done well. Reed is letting her lead, showing him that she wants this kiss. She wants what follows. Page 161, we get to stage 8, hand to head. The hand that's not clutched in this, it lifts seemingly of its own accord. I reach out and stroke my fingers through his thick mass of red blonde hair, and I think his whole body shivers, and I think mine does too. I'm sorry I didn't call. He's Reed the repentant. It's all right, I say, stroking again. Tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow, he agrees. And then, as if to seal it, Reed lifts his head the smallest amount, enough to press his lips against the back of my hand. So that occurred before the real kiss. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he kisses the back of her hand before he ever kisses her lips. Notice they both have a shivering reaction to her running her fingers through his hair. That visceral reaction, those types of reactions, are what show that the lovers are having a physical response to each other even before they themselves agree to go there mentally. All right, moving on, because it's a rapid progression. Stage 9, hand to body. This is on page 167 and also continues on 172. I tracked 2 hands to body's movement. One that involved clothing, because these 2 people are so proper and polite, I could die. The hand that's not holding mine reaches out, and Reed sets a gentle finger to one of the buttons on my jacket. 3 paragraphs later, this picks up again. Then he moves his finger, tucking it under the edge of the buttons, tugging gently. The movement exerts no pressure, but I still lean closer to him. That's true, I whisper, and when I raise my eyes to his, I can see the heat there. I want that heat. I want it, and right now. And it doesn't matter to me if it'll hurt someday soon. It doesn't matter if this ends up being the fight of my life. There's conflict. She doesn't want to get hurt. She loves New York City, and he hates it, and he wants to leave. There's no future for them, but she still wants him. The heart wants what it wants. And then we get to a real hand to body one, hand to a place of the body that usually has clothes, that doesn't have clothes, on page 171. It happens right after that kiss, and 2 pages later, and things are getting sexy at a rapid pace now. My eyes are busy on the parts of his body I reveal as I strip off his clothes. His stomach, flat and ridged, with muscles, a ladder of gorgeous, organized strength leading to the heaven of his broad, smooth chest. Broader even still by the way the muscles of his swimmer's back fan out. I spread my hands over his shoulders, feel the textures of his skin, sort of buzzing electricity in my fingertips. I hear the way Reed's breath catches and quickens when I lean in to taste the clean smelling skin of his neck. Ooh, All the sensory details. Ooh, it's tangible. All right, stage 10, mouth to breast on page 175. This one's a bit odd because Meg is touching her own breast and showing Reed how she likes it. But hey, it works for them. And this is all we're going to see before they are to stage 12. So we're going to do it. I'm sensitive here, I whisper, finally, letting one hand trace up, my fingertips lingering on the full underside of my breast, a curve of skin that always makes my nipples harden in response when I'm touched there. I draw a single finger across my nipple, flicking it the way I'd want him to. He watches, his tongue darting out at the corner of his mouth, his eyes hot and focused. And I know he's seeing me, reading me, cracking this code I'm leaving letters on the page for him alone. And suddenly I have a new powerful rush of feelings, a different sort of passion. Ooh. And I picture him being like a lizard with his tongue there, but she's teaching him how. And that theme continues with stage 11, handed genitals, on page 176 to 177. Continuing with this theme, Meg is once again touching herself and teaching Reed what she likes. My hand smooths down my stomach, lingers in the soft curved space between my belly button and my pubic bone. I stroke my fingers there lightly, a tiny, gentle cursive, the same way I would at home, in my own bed, late at night. And now finally, we have made it to stage 12, genitals to genitals. It's on page 177. And finally, the last part of the evening, Reed finally gets into the action after watching her show him what she likes. Notice that 6 of these 12 stages all take place within 10 pages, more than halfway through the book. There's this cluster. Think about your pacing and how to build up anticipation prior to letting your characters get satisfaction. I mean, different heat levels, different pacing, and this one has an interesting one. That's why I picked it. Some steamy contemporary romance would have all of these in the first 60 pages, and then we have more scenes, but this is the buildup for the first one. He settles between my legs and pushes forward, so slow, so perfect, so focused. It feels so good right from the very first second. In a sort of desperate surprise panic, I clutch at Reed's sides, pulling him closer to me, relieved when the bolt of pleasure I get from feeling the full length of him inside of me scatters the rest of those too soon letters from my mind as if they're pencil shavings I've blown from the page. Then all I can think about is the next thrust of his hips, the next roll of mine, the way we find such an easy, perfect rhythm together, and walking in sync, like reading the signs that we share with each other, a touch here, a touch there, a gasp, a groan, a sigh. And there we have the 12 stages of physical intimacy, a description and examples of each from a best-selling contemporary romance novel. I hope that this is helpful. If you like this video, please share on social media, like, and subscribe to my channel for my weekly videos on writing, editing, and the writing life. Tune in next week for a video review of a romance writing craft book, Romancing the Beat by Gwen Hayes. This is freelance fiction editor Miranda Darrow wishing you happy writing.